Good morning, friends. I'm pretty much excited to come back to you with the next important area in the series that we are doing, that is Anthropology Most Expected Questions for the year 2026 UPSC Civil Services Mains. I'm sure you must have watched the previous video wherein I tried to give a format of our lecture series. In this, we are trying to identify the most expected questions, keeping in view the contemporary trends in the UPSC exam. Based on that, I am trying to identify the topics and giving you a basic structure of it, and in what different ways, whether the case studies, examples, thinkers can be added to your answer. So let us move on to the next topic in this series, that is Decolonizing Anthropology, the future of the discipline. See, in the exam from time to time, the new genre of questions and the contemporary branches and fields are coming up as questions. In fact, to say that this topic, Decolonizing Anthropology, is actually dealing with certain other elements, meaning the inner theme is slightly different. The theme is that whether anthropology has begun as the given of the colonialism, and whether the way colonial rulers and colonial thinkers, administrators pursued anthropology has been changing, or it has to change for the good. In fact, this topic of decolonizing anthropology is linked to large sections of the syllabus. I am trying to identify some sections where there is a clear linkage with this particular topic. For example, history of anthropology, anthropological theories, fieldwork methodologies, indigenous knowledge systems, IKS, applied anthropology, and tribal studies. All these in some way or the other are linked to colonial anthropology and decolonizing anthropology. And this topic is important, the high probability question for this year, because it actually portrays the way post-colonial governments have tried to deal with the issues that are at the core of anthropology. It is not simply the tribe, but it is actually how exactly we are trying to understand the others. The others may be the cultures, the nationalities, races, castes, religions, etc. So it is in that perspective, even today, in the conflict zones across the globe are in terms of we and them. So others has always been the focus area of anthropology, and how the others have been dealt with in the subject forms the crux of this question. Let us look at, to begin with, colonialism and anthropology. Then we will go to decolonizing anthropology. As most of you know this, see, this topic of decolonizing is nothing new to you, if at all you have understood the foundations of this subject. So colonialism and anthropology have gone hand in glove right from the beginning, and that was when the European colonial masters, when they tried to get into the expansion into the other unknown worlds, parallel to that, anthropology also had emerged. So colonialism and anthropology are so closely intertwined that due to the curiosity to study the others, so colonial anthropology is often seen as a way of studying the others. Now, it is not simply studying the others, you will have to look at this, it is trying to study the others from the perspective of the powerful, the elite, and the one that are at the highest realm of affairs at that point of time. Meaning, in the beginnings of anthropology, it was largely ethnocentric. So, When we are talking about decolonizing anthropology, one very significant thing that should come to your mind is the element of ethics being added to anthropology. So within the ethics of anthropology, as we see with the Boasian anthropology, we see the rewriting of the way anthropology has to be studied and it has to conduct research, etc. Meaning that when others are being studied, from whose perspective you are studying. In the colonial anthropology, it is from the perspective of the powerful. I hope now you got the crux of the question. Now one must be wondering, why is it that the colonial rulers were trying to use this study such as culturology? It is because they believed that knowledge was important, knowledge of the native was important, so that they can categorize, classify the native, and they can govern. So this governance of the native, it can be generally seen as in the interest of the colonial ruler, not in the interest of the native. That is how generally we look at things. So knowledge, classification and governance, these three are correlated. Knowledge is where the culturology, or that's the old name of anthropology, comes into picture. So basically it is seen as, in the beginnings, it was a study in terms of the primitive versus the civilized. It is not, and you see, it is not primitive plus the civilized, primitive and the civilized, it is primitive versus civilized. And look at the derogatory nature of the terminology, primitive, the derogatory nature of terminology. So that was the old anthropology or the colonial anthropology. Now you must be understanding, when I say decolonizing anthropology, it also has to take into account the terminology shift as well. It is the perspective shift, mindset shift, and the terminology shift. So the beginnings were largely ethnocentric, as we have mentioned. Apart from being ethnocentric, the earliest studies were ethnological, in the sense that they were comprehensive, they were quite exhaustive, meaning that they tried to identify the classification of people in terms of race, tribe, caste, etc., and then various kinship systems, religious systems, economic systems, political systems, etc., meaning the earliest studies were more comprehensive with ethnological and ethnocentric way of writing. So people like Boas, when they try to propose ethical dimension in anthropology, they try to understand and explain to us what went wrong in the classical anthropology. It was, to a couple of names that I am trying to bring to you, like E.B. Tyler and L.H. Morgan, the very popular names, and several other names for that matter. We see that there is ethnocentrism that is very clearly spelled out in the terminologies, in the way they were trying to talk about the natives, the terms such as barbaric, uncivilized, forages, etc. When they're using the terminologies, they not only look abusive, but they also show the high standards of ethnocentrism, and this is what was to be changed in the process of anthropology that was getting decolonized. And the critics of classical anthropological writers, they also pointed this out. That is, when one was trying to focus more on Western ways of studying and observing, the earliest anthropology had actually silenced the indigenous knowledge, and that spells out the objective of decolonizing anthropology. Now let me bring to you the meaning or perspectives or the components that have to be incorporated in your answer in the topic of decolonizing anthropology. There are three perspectives that I was trying to bring, three dimensions. One is epistemological dimension, meaning what are the ways of knowing the native. Secondly, who does the research. Thirdly, who speaks from whose point of view. Firstly, when I am talking about epistemological way of studying, it means that how exactly the knowledge of the native is being captured. Is it keeping the native in the dark, or is it through the informed choice? So in the decolonizing anthropology, the very significant thing is the native has to be kept informed. So in the contemporary anthropology, it is not simply tribal that is being studied. There's so many other realms that we are studying. Whenever we are trying to study the other person, other community, other group, we will have to incorporate this principle of keeping them informed of the purpose of your research. Then it would be a level playing field. And then you have how exactly the research has to be conducted. It is not the traditional kind of a fieldwork, it is the very contemporary fieldwork with participatory studies. Now it is participatory not simply in terms of the researcher participating in the natives' ways of life, it is the other way around also, participation of the subject in whatever you are trying to do research in. So you can understand this. There are newer dimensions that are getting added to the research methodologies in anthropology. And thirdly, the representation from whose perspective. It is not the traditional stereotypic perspective, it has to be incorporating the native. It is not simply the gaze at the native, but the native's perspective. So you must have come across these terminologies like etik, emik, etc. Now it is incorporation of different perspectives, the native, the researcher, and various other perspectives being incorporated, and that is the most beautiful thing in anthropology, that you try to give respect to various perspectives, various viewpoints, and the ultimate importance that you give to is the field or the native. And it is in that sense, decolonizing anthropology is different from the traditional colonial bred anthropology. And this particular question is incomplete without incorporation of at least 4 names in your answer. That is, one is Franz Boas, who laid foundations of ethics in anthropology and concepts of cultural relativism. When you were looking at the old questions, previous year questions of UPSC, you might have seen this term repeatedly being asked, that is cultural relativism. So without Boas, the question of decolonizing anthropology cannot be answered. And the other people in this sequence, one could be Michael Foucault, who spoke about power and knowledge. In the initial talk today, I was mentioning this, that earlier, that is colonial anthropology was looked at as studying the others from the perspective of the powerful. So power structures was something that he was trying to look at. Colonial anthropology is nothing but the anthropology that is being produced because of the power, because of the elitistic aspects the colonial rulers were having. And how exactly that had to be changed, that was the viewpoint of Foucault. And then you have Edward Said, who is known for his Orientalism in his writings in anthropology. He was also talking about how the Western representations of the East had produced the power relationships, whether they are passive powers, whether feminism, etc. So these 2 writers, that is Foucault and Edward Said, looked at the power structures in anthropology from different angles. And then you have the very contemporary writer. You can actually get an independent question on this lady, Linda Smith. She was talking about the methodologies, decolonizing the methodologies. So she was focusing it, how exactly to conduct research so that you are not disrespectful towards the indigenous knowledge, indigenous people. So she is known for the very current writings in anthropology. So you can quote her in ethics, in decolonizing, in research methodologies, etc. So this is one other question you are supposed to prepare for the upcoming exam. And as I was telling you in the earlier talk itself, that in most of the questions, or in all of the questions, you try to see to what extent we can incorporate the concept or the topic to the Indian context. So how decolonizing anthropology can be applied to India? Remember that right from the beginning, India, along with the African, Latin American, or Australian, Oceanian populations, was one of the subject matters for the colonial anthropologists. So the way of studying anthropology from the colonial angle, or the study of studying Indian society, the tribal society, caste Hindus, etc., in the beginning was from the British point of view. And now we see that there are several others who tried to challenge. So earlier colonial ethnographies, whether that is Risley, Russell, Thurston, name it, tens of British anthropologists, they had followed the very typical colonial way of writing. In these names I have used Risley, who is very, very popular, as you might have seen in classification, in the racial classification, etc. So you see that these colonial ethnographic traditions were marked by the classification of people into different entities based on whether race or caste or whatever. And then here you have Verrier Elwin, who can be seen as somebody who tried to question, who tried to add better aspects to anthropology through the fieldwork, through the service that he was trying to render, through the so-called developmental anthropological approaches. So decolonizing has actually been reflected in Elwin's writings. And then in your answer, you can incorporate several things in decolonizing, because now the focus is not getting the knowledge for the betterment of the government, it is getting the knowledge for the betterment of the people. So it is from that point of view, you have huge lot of areas that you can perhaps incorporate: tribal participation, applied policy anthropology, rights-based approaches, or PISA, or Forest Rights Act, PVTGs. All these actually become an active and significant aspect of decolonizing anthropology. So you can see that there is a shift from gaining the knowledge of the native for the betterment of the colonial ruler to gaining the knowledge for improving the status of the subject itself. So that is the summary of decolonizing anthropology. Now, pick up your pen and paper, try to answer this question and get it evaluated on Sosin AI so that you get to understand where exactly you are, and feel free to approach me for any kind of clarifications. And not to forget, the upcoming question that I am going to deal with is anthropology beyond postmodernism. About this we are going to talk in the next video. Have a great time. Thank you.